Good morning, Math 1 students. I miss you all greatly. It's not quite the same not having you guys here in class today, but today I'm going to record a short 10-minute lesson here for you guys to watch today, and then you'll have an assignment on Khan Academy to complete about finding the slope of a line that passes through 2 points. Now, some of you right before spring break were able to get the lesson on this, so you can just go ahead and skip this video and head right to Khan Academy to complete the assignment. But for those that this is new, please watch through this. It's actually a pretty simple process, and I think you'll understand it pretty quickly. Okay? So sometimes in a math problem, we'll be given 2 points like this. You can see I've got 2, 3, and 4, 5. Remember that my points are written my x value, my y value. So if we were to graph those, if I were to graph 2, 3, I'd go 2 in the x direction and 3 in the y, and make a point. And if I were to graph 4, 5, I'd go 4 in the x direction and 5 in the y, and make a point. And when we've got those 2 points, we could connect them to form a line. And remember that slope describes how steep something is. So the slope would describe how steep this line is here that we have. So we could graph the points every time and count the slope, but that can sometimes take a while, especially if our points are really large. So we've got another way that we can find slope if they give us 2 points, and that's using an equation, basically. So I won't have you write down the actual slope equation in your notes, but maybe write down these 4 steps right here. We're going to write 1 point above the other, 5 steps. Subtract the y's, write a fraction bar, subtract the x's, and simplify. So for example, if I had a problem that asked me to find the slope between the points of 3, 4 and 0, 2, this is kind of the process I'd run through. If you remember, we write our slope, this is from our graphing lesson, we write our slope as the rise over the run. So that's what we're going to be doing each time, is figuring out what number the rise is going to be and what number the run is going to be. Okay? In order to do this, I need to write 1 point right above the other. So what I'm going to do is I'll see a problem like this, and I'm going to take 0, 2 and just write them right underneath my first point. That way everything's all nicely lined up. Kind of just like when you were used to do addition and subtraction in elementary school, everything's lined up nicely. Okay? First thing to do is to subtract the y's. Now, these are the x values, those are the y's. I want the rise, subtract the y's. I'm going to go top to bottom, 4 minus 2. So I'm going to write 4 minus 2. Okay. Step 3, write a fraction bar. I'm going to write a bar right underneath it. Okay, because what we just did was the rise part. We want the rise, subtract the y's. If we want what's next, subtract the x. So I'm going to subtract the x values, 3 and 0. So we write 3 minus 0. Final step is to simplify. Okay, so I'm going to do the math I see on top of the bar and the math I see below the bar. On top of the bar, I see 4 minus 2, which gets us 2. And below the bar, I see 3 minus 0, which gets us 3. There's no other simplifying to do from here. If I put this into my calculator, I get like 0.6666, which isn't a super nice decimal. So 2 over 3 is our slope. Right? And if you remember from the graphing lesson, if you were to graph a line that had a slope of 2 over 3, you would rise 2, run 3, make a point. Rise 2, run 3, make a point. So we just found slope kind of just by using the numbers instead of graphing. Here's another example. Say I had the point 2, 3 and 1, 5. I'm just going to run through my steps again that I've got right up here. It says first to write 1 point above the other, or write 1 below the other. So I'm going to take this guy and write him down here. So that way we can just work vertically. This helps us eliminate mistakes because the point we start with when we subtract the y's has to be the point we start with when we subtract the x's. Okay, so that's why I suggest writing them up vertically, 1 right above the other. Okay. Again, I want the rise, subtract the y's. I want the rise, subtract the y's. 3 minus 5. So I'm going to write that horizontally there. If I want what's next, subtract the x. 2 minus 1. Okay, let's see what happens when we do this. If you type into your calculator, you can use the calculator that's on your computer, 3 minus 5, you'll get negative 2. I'm going to write that. I'm going to keep my bar. And now I'm going to do 2 minus 1. And if I subtract 2 minus 1, I get 1. Now there are multiple ways to write this. If you keep it as negative 2 divided by 1 or negative 2 over 1, I'm totally fine with that. That's correct. Because you're going to rise a negative 2, which means go down, and run 1, which means go to the right. But you can also simplify that even further and just write it simply as negative 2, which we sometimes see. And when we're graphing lines in slope-intercept form, we'll see something like y equals negative 2x plus 3. And if you remember, when I tell you to figure out what the slope is, I say negative 2 over 1, over an imaginary 1, divided by an imaginary. Okay, but not all of our examples are going to work out nicely like this every time. Sometimes we're going to have to deal with negative numbers, right? Because not all our points always have just positive numbers. So say I had these 2 points, 3 comma 3 and 1 comma negative 6. I'm going to do the same, run through the same steps though. I'm going to write this point right below the first point so that I can work vertically. If I want the rise, subtract the y's. So I'm going to do 3 minus negative 6. Watch what this looks like. 3 minus a negative 6. So I've got a double, 2 minus signs basically, a double negative almost. I'm going to write my fraction bar. Okay, if I want what's next, subtract the x. 3 minus 1. So don't be tempted to just write one negative sign. We have to still subtract the negative. Okay, we can have both of them. That's totally okay. Now I need to simplify on top and bottom. I'd suggest using your calculator for this piece. You could type in a 3 minus a negative 6. Or remember that if you take away a bad thing, it's a good thing. So really 3 minus negative 6 is actually going to get us a positive 9. And 3 minus 1 is going to give us 2. And I know that this can't simplify any further because the only thing I can divide 2 by is 2. And 2 doesn't go evenly into 9. I can only divide 9 by 3, 1, and 9. So we're done. 9 over 2 is your slope. It's completely simplified all of the way. Let's kind of work through another example here where we've got some more negative signs going on. Say I had the points negative 4 comma 2 and negative 7 comma negative 11. In this case, we've got a lot of negative signs, but it can happen. But same process. I'm going to write this point right below that point. Okay. If I want the rise, subtract the y's. 2 minus negative 11. 2 minus negative 11. Write my fraction bar. If I want what's next, subtract the x. Negative 4 minus negative 7. So negative 4 minus negative 7. This is where a calculator really comes in handy with this one because we're subtracting a lot of negatives here. But 2 minus negative 11, like 2 plus 11, which gives me 13. Negative 4 minus a negative 7 is like negative 4 plus 7, which gives me 3. And that's the slope of that line. We'd rise 13 and run 3, and rise 13 and run 3. It'd be a pretty difficult one to graph kind of all at once. Okay. I want to show you 2 other scenarios that we can end up with when we're doing these kinds of problems. Okay. So the next set, we say we have the points 5 comma 12 and 5 comma 17. On this one, something really interesting is going to happen. Again, I'm going to run through the same process, right? One point below the other. So I'm just taking that guy and writing him down there. That way they're right above and below each other. I want the rise, subtract the y's. 12 minus 17. I want what's next, subtract the x. 5 minus 5. If I do 12 minus 17 in my calculator, if I'm taking away a bigger number, I end up with a negative 5. Okay? And on the bottom, if I do 5 minus 5, I get 0. Remember what happens when we divide by 0? We don't know what we get when we divide by 0. Okay? So if you type that in your calculator, you'll get different errors sometimes. Sometimes it'll say divide by 0 error, or sometimes it'll say input error or syntax error, or it might say cannot divide by 0 if you do it on your computer. And so what that means is that this guy is undefined. If you remember in class when I was having you guys use your arms to show the slope of lines, remember if it's going up and down like that, the slope of the line is undefined because it's so steep. We can't even figure out how steep it is. So this is this scenario. We just found the slope of a line that's going straight up and down. It's undefined, okay? And if you look at it, if you were to graph 5, 12, right, you'd go over 5 in the x direction and up 12 in the y. And 5, 17, you go the same amount in the x direction and up 17 in the y. Look, if you connect those two, sure enough, you get a vertical line. Okay. We could also have the opposite effect happen like this. Say I had the points 12, 5 and 17, 5. Okay, again, I'm going to take that guy and write him right underneath so I can subtract directly down. If I want the rise, subtract the y's. So 5 minus 5. If I want what's next, subtract the x. 12 minus 17. If I do 5 minus 5, I get 0. 12 minus 17, I get negative 5. And then this one, go ahead and simplify in your calculator by doing 0 divided by negative 5. So if I have 0 pizzas and I divide them into negative 5 parts, well, each person still gets 0 pizza slices because I didn't have any pizzas to start with. So if you divide that, you actually get 0. And if you remember, a line that has a slope of 0 is just a flat line. Right? It's going from left to right horizontally. So all of those cases can happen. You can end up with negatives, undefined, and zeros. I am going to show you guys by sharing my screen what the Khan Academy assignment looks like for today. If you go to your main dashboard, this is what that process will look like. So when you guys go into Khan Academy, again, you'll just see the Math 1 basic class on assignments, and it'll say active, and the slope from 2 points is the assignment for today. So I click on that. And it will, just like my example problems here, give you 2 points. I want you to write them vertically, subtract the y's to find the rise. If you want what's next, subtract the x, simplify, and then choose the answer that's correct. And remember, you can run through and do these as many times as you need to. But just so you know, that's the assignment for today is the one that's titled Slope from 2 points. You may have the other ones to do regarding graphing that we talked about last week. So if you need to still graph from slope-intercept form, make sure you do that one first, and then do slope 2 points. Feel free to zoom in today at 8 o'clock if you have any questions.